how then that a man is born again? Because Nicodemus misunderstood it. He thought, well, are you saying I've got to enter into my mother's womb and be physically born again? And Jesus is saying, no, not a physical birth. You've already got that. Every one of us, you got a mom and a dad, you got a sin nature. And so we need a spiritual birth, one from above. And that's entered into by grace through faith. And in that same context of John 3 is one of the more well-known verses of the Bible about how God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, whether Serbian or living here in the United States or whatever part of the world you're in, because we're all of the same race, the human race.
And so we're here with Pastor Gaddis here at Southwest Baptist Church. And this is one of the churches that's been an influence in my life. I went to Bible college here and spent 4 years, I think, at least, maybe a little extra here, going to church here and being part of bus ministry and different ministries around the church. So it's been a big part and one of the reasons that God called us to go to Serbia. And so Pastor Gaddis was here the entire time. And so he was here hanging out and preaching and teaching, and I think he even taught at the Bible college. Do you still teach up there?
Still teach at the college, yeah. I teach 3 classes there.
And so what I'd like to do is just kind of get him on here so you guys can get to meet him and get to see his testimony. What is it that God does with a man, and how does he pull someone from whatever you used to be? You know, you got saved at a certain age and used to do something. Maybe you built Corvettes, you know.
No claim to fame.
No claim to fame. And then, so I guess we'll just start with the first question, and that is, what happened with salvation? You say, who did you have to pay, you know, or what was it that brought you, and what is salvation? Where was you? How old were you? What happened?
Well, let's see, Brother Man, I was 8 years old, and I was fortunate that my mom kept me in church, and my dad wasn't in church, but she made sure that I was. So I heard the gospel early on, and then it was my one of the teachers teaching on one way that went to heaven, one way that went to hell, and I realized I was on the wrong road. And the Lord showed me that I was a sinner. There's nothing I could do to save myself, but that Jesus paid the complete price, nothing for me to add to it, and but just to receive as a gift. And so even as an 8-year-old, I remember just raised my hand acknowledging that I wasn't saved and asked the Lord to save me. And I even prayed it this way, Lord, would you put me on the right road, you know? And so the main thing is, though, is just that I understood the free gift of salvation and accepted it by trusting who Jesus is and what he did for my salvation. Yeah.
Some people, you know, my son over here, he's 8, right? You're 8? Okay. And some people over in Europe and some religious places would say, "Hey, that's too young."
Yeah.
You know, what would you say to that? As far as
yeah, you know, that is a good consideration, and I think every parent ought to be really concerned about that, especially with their kids, to make sure that they understood. But you know, I'm getting ready to preach this Sunday on how Jesus said, "Suffer the little children come to me," and that except you become as a little child. You know, and so there's a simplicity there that is beautiful and helpful. Obviously, there's got to be understanding. And so even as we were raising our own sons, one of them was saved at age 5, even age 6. So that is really young. But I had heard the gospel all my life, knew that I was a sinner. So I think the most important thing is just understanding. And then also that there's conviction of sin, and I certainly was experiencing that at that time and knew that I needed the Savior, you know. And so fortunately, I was aware of the problem, but then also the solution. So the Lord did make it so simple that even a child could understand, you know, and receive Christ.
What's it say? Is it Galatians, or as Paul? I think he said that I'm worried or I'm scared that you've corrupted simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of religions do that, don't they?
Yes. We can take what God made simple and make it complex. But what the Lord did, even when he came amongst the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all the religious leaders, is just that he took what they had made complicated and made it really simple and clear.
Think about my son right here, you know, the intellectual gap between his mind and mine. Right. No offense, but it may be the difference, right?
Right.
Okay. So So when I'm giving my son instructions on how to do something, I want to keep it basic.
Yes.
Just get this done.
That's right.
But when you look at the intellectual between mankind and God, it's massive.
Massive.
So God's like, all right, yes, I can create a molecule out of nothing.
Yeah.
I can create the sun to shine through rain. But I'm going to keep this simple.
Keep this simple. That's very good. That's a good.
So your parents were Christians. They grew up in a Baptist church.
Yeah.
And through that process of time, you were going to school, public school, homeschool?
Public school. Yeah.
Public school, really?
School all the way through, yeah. My first 2 years were in a Christian school only because it was close to where my mom worked. So that was very simple. But the rest of my time was in the public school system.
Okay. And so I'm sure you've seen a lot of stuff during those times.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of it wasn't good for me, early on, because I wanted to fit in with the group of friends that I had and all that came with that. Some of the influences of the world, the unregenerate world, were there, and so that was a problem. But then the Lord got my attention, and then actually it turned around to where I began to get concerned about my classmates and began to witness to them.
Yeah. And your kids they went through a private school, probably.
Right. Yeah. Christian, some homeschool, private school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings you all the way up to where was it? How old were you when you were like, man, I just want to be a preacher?
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to be a missionary. What was that?
Right. Well, as I began to surrender my life to the Lord, just submitting to Him and separating myself unto Him, or Him separating me unto Him, I began to discern that the Lord was calling me to preach. So I was age 15, and I began to pray, similar to like what Peter did when he saw the Lord walking on the water, and he said, "Lord, if it's Thee, bid me come." And because he wanted to make sure that it was the Lord before he got out of the boat. Right. And I began to actually pray that, God, I want to preach. I believe You're calling me to preach, but I want to make sure that it's You. And so I began to discern that. I preached my first message at age 15. And then it was actually 35 years ago right now, this time of the year, August the 1st, 1991, that I surrendered to do whatever God wanted me to do, but I knew it was a call to preach. So I surrendered to preach, and with that, just to do whatever. So then I prayed. I really thought that I'd end up on the mission field. I was praying about India in particular. And the Lord really just used that. It became when I went to Bible college, I was a missions major all the way through. And then in Missouri, similar state that you lived in for many years, I was working with the pastor there, Brother Jeff Copes, that you know well. And he moved here to Oklahoma City and asked, would you prayerfully consider pastoring there in Missouri? And I was in the grad school at the time, preparing for missions, preparing for India, in fact. And I just almost instantly knew I was supposed to pastor. Well, that decision then led to us moving here at Oklahoma City, and as I look back on it now, I see how that God used that missions emphasis to really shape my heart and mind, because the Southwest Baptist Church is a very missions-minded church, which I trust that every church would be, but it really has been. And then you add to that Heartland Baptist Bible College and the opportunity to have some measure of influence with students about world missions in particular. So, I'm still willing, if God called me, to leave here and go there. But I believe right now I know where I'm supposed to be, and it's here. And although it's not on the mission field, it's in a pastoral role. I absolutely love it, and just thank God for the opportunity.
Yeah. It seems like all these videos we've done, there's been a very consistent theme that really matches what God did with Abraham.
Yeah.
So God didn't tell Abraham, I got a spot for you here.
Right.
I could tell you. He said, you're going to go this way.
It. Oh, that's so true.
Is that
Matt.
similar?
Absolutely.
He didn't say, I want you to be a pastor in Oklahoma City.